Okay, so it's 5:30 and I would like to call the meeting to order. And the first order of business, do we have any agenda adjustments anybody would like to propose? Okay. So Monique, would you take care of number 3, please?
Yeah. We didn't have any public. Yeah.
Let me back up, Monique. Would you do the roll call, please?
Yes. Mark Mansfield.
Here.
John Fernandez.
Here.
Renee Hoiser.
Here.
And Lauren Chet.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Thank you, trustees, for being here. Okay, Monique, so let's go to number 3 now.
We didn't have any call to the audience. No comments were made at all.
Okay.
At your front door.
So item 4 is approval of the meeting minutes for April 1st. So I'm looking for a motion and a second.
So moved.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the April 1st meeting minutes. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so now the next item is the review and approval of the February financials. Christina, would you please take over?
Okay, Monique, did you want to?
Yeah, I'll pull them
Okay.
up. I've got them ready. Just one sec.
Okay, go ahead and go to the next page, Monique. Starting with assets, we have approximately $27.4 million. That's cash on deposit with the county, and then the imprest account that's held by UMR. Our current accounts payable is $438,000, and the IBNR is a $2.7 million reserve for future claims.
Monique, would you roll it up a little bit, please? Thank you.
That gives you total liabilities of $3.2 million. Then our equity, our total reserves and unrestricted funds gives equity of $24 million. Total liabilities and equity come to $27.3 million. Next page, Monique. The statement of revenue expense, the transactions for the month of February. We had $3 million in premiums, 87,000 in subsidies to TUSD. So your net premiums were almost $3 million. Interest on investments for the month was 107,000. That's total income of $3,087,000. Payroll 19,000. Scroll down a little, Monique. Oops, up just a little bit more. We had medical and prescription claims of $1 million each, and stop loss fees out of network. The claims, the large claims for the month of February, there were 5, totaling $386,000. Our net ordinary income for the month was a small loss of 32,000, and there was no additional income. The prescription rebates, I believe, came in the month of March. Next page, Monique. So the comparative between this year and last year, our net premium fees are up 870,000. Our interest is up 417,000. We had miscellaneous revenue. There was a couple adjustments due to recalculations, and I think there was also a claim against one of the organizations that overcharge. So we have $161,000 this year for that. That gives total income of $24,170,000. Last year it was $22,724,000, so up $1.4 million. The total expenditures for the month, $25,276,000. Last year it was $23,088,000, up $2,188,000. Most of that was from the medical and prescription claim increases and the out of network. So that gave net ordinary income year to date $1.1 million loss for the current year, $364,000 loss for the prior year. So a decrease in net ordinary income of $742,000. Next page, Monique. So other income, prescription rebates year to date were $3 million. Last year they were $2.3 million, up $728,000. Change in value of investments, we recognized what we cashed in this year. We sent all the money over to the county. So last year there was an unrealized change in value. So between the two of them, it came out to the $90,000. Total other income is $3 million year to date. Last year it was 2.2, up $823,000. Net revenue over expenditures, almost $2 million for the current year. Last year it was pretty close to 1.9, so not much of a change. Our plan year, we started with almost $26 million in opening cash. Last year it was close to $21 million. Taking into the adjustments for the non-cash type items, we had net cash before reserves of $27.3 million this year, almost $22.6 million last. That was an increase of $4.8 million. The reserves for IBNR are down a little from the previous year. So our ending cash balance after reserves is 24.6 the current year and 19.5 the prior year. So we continue to be up about $5 million in our reserves. Next page, Monique. This is just a recap of supplemental information, the payroll amounts, the sources of a little more to the left, Monique. The sources of the interest income. So before we close out Wells Fargo, we had 70,000, I'm sorry. And then Pima County Treasurer to date has been 563,000. Their yield on investment in February was 5.3%. And then just down toward the bottom is kind of a recap as to where we stand right now with the prescriptions.
Can you move that up, Monique, so we can see that?
Scroll down just a little more, Monique. So
Yeah.
there's the prescription rebate history. We had almost $5 million by the end of the year of June last year. We're at $3 million through February this year. Okay, next page, Monique. This is just a statement of cash flow. So our net income was 1.9, almost $2 million. If we adjust for non-cash activity, that comes to an adjustment of $578,000 in reduction. Net cash provided by operations was $1.4 million. We started at the beginning of the year with almost $26 million. At this point in time, on a cash basis, we're at $27.3 million. Next page, Monique. This is just some general representation. The upper section is just a summary. Underneath is our enrollment. So we're at 4,453 through February average member count. Last year it was 4,480, only a difference of 27. The average membership graphically represented. If you go down a little bit more, Monique, then we just have the average cost. $700, almost $710 in cost. The revenue was $656 for the current month. So that's a net difference of cost over revenue of $53. Last year we were at $4.99. And then a graphical representation of those figures. And then the next one, Monique, is just another graphical representation of the cost of the members per month. Scroll down just a little more, we can see the figures. So year to date, if you average that out, it's $710 per member per month. Last year, for the same time range, it was $650 per member per month. Were there any questions?
So Christina, have you had a peek at all at March or April?
March, I just got the IBNR report, so I haven't quite finished it up. I'm hoping to get that done and out by Monday next week. And I don't have the figures right in front of me right now. And I
Okay.
haven't had a chance to look at April.
Okay. And then some of the questions I've got on this actually tie to the reserve policy. So I think I'll wait till that item to raise my questions.
Okay.
Anybody else have questions for Christina? Okay, with that, I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve the February financials.
I move that we accept the financials as presented.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the financials. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passed. Now I saw Tom on here a second ago, and oh, there's Tom. Tom, do you know if Jameson's going to jump on?
No, Jameson's not on tonight.
Okay, so are you our man?
I am Jameson.
Okay, he got better looking.
Okay, shall I roll with the experience report?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is activity through March. Running at, when you include the rebates, which are current, running at about an 87% loss ratio. Good place to be. Again, that loss ratio is the comparison of what the expense is to the total contributions made. So it's running well. On page 3 is the PPO plan. Typically, this is the plan that.
Tom, do you have stuff that we should be looking at? Because I don't have any.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking it on my screen, but she hasn't put it up. I guess I should share.
That would be great.
Forgive me. Oh, I can't share.
You should be able to. The option
says
is on, so
disabled.
try one more time.
Okay. Yeah, I was looking at my screen and
Everything was great.
let
I
me
was
try
like, oh,
again.
man.
There we go. Beautiful. All right.
Okay, got it.
Everybody see that now? Okay. So back to the first page. Again, running at 87%. This number right down here. Again, this is a comparison of medical expenses, prescription drug expenses to date, along with the netted out with the rebates. So again, running at 87%, which is a nice number. Page 3 is the PPO plan. A little more than half your employees are on this plan, running at 133% loss ratio. If Jameson were here, he'd say it's really only the summary page that matters, because the PPO plan, they always run hotter than the other plans. So it's not surprising to see this at 133% loss ratio. When we go to the next high deductible, those are people who are shopping price of the plan more than their need of health care. And you can see this is running at 76%. About 1,300 people, probably about 25%, I guess, of your employees are in this plan. And the third plan is the other high deductible 3,000. And you can see that's running at 51%, which again is a nice number, but is expected for the high deductible plans. I know that was rather quick. Any question on any of these slides? It's running well.
Okay, any questions for Tom? Okay, with that, we will go to 5.02, the Wellness Council. Andrea, you're up.
Hey everybody, it's great to see you guys again. Boy, that year went by fast. I don't know about you guys, but for us, it definitely went by wicked fast. Let me get this up, and then let me know if you can actually see my screen. Yes? Anybody?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Monique, you might have to, I'm pretty sure that I have the ability to share, but hold on.
You do try it one more time, and then if not, I'll pull it up.
Okay, let's end this and let's go over here to this one. Of course, I had it all prompt and ready to go, so of course it's not going to work. All right, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, there you
How's
go.
that?
There you go.
You're good.
Okay, good. Okay, so as you guys probably remember from our past, each year with our wellness initiative, we always come up with a theme to kind of help map us through the year. And this year, our theme was move through it. We are now past COVID. We were in a new year, a new you, and we really wanted to focus on let's just go. And with that, we were talking about having a constant reminder to progress, just to constantly progress forward. And how we wanted to do that was gain it through discipline, consistency, and results. Now, during this presentation, if you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to chime in. This can be an open discussion. So I really value your feedback. So our coaches were the same from last year and the year before and the year before. So we still have Debbie and Iris and Joan and Kevin. Debbie has been promoted to the program manager. So a lot of the programs that you're going to see today, Debbie actually highlights these programs and she manages these programs. So, but our number one program is health coaching. We know that when we have a health promotion, if it's a challenge or an event, our goal is to drive them to health coaching. Because when we can get a one-on-one or even a group working together, we're going to see more positive change. So usually they average about 20-minute sessions. They're of course free and confidential. They're in person or we're still doing it virtual. And you'll see this in their reports. The reports actually go to John and Rosie. So John and Rosie can share those reports with you at any time. That gives you a monthly snapshot of exactly what we're doing out in the field. We also really kind of focus on our main 6 drivers, which is nutrition, weight loss, sports and fitness, stress management, which is a huge, huge component. You're going to see that in just a bit. Self-care, and then also disease prevention and management. We really try to refer out most of the disease programming through, let's say, for instance, Rally or UMR, and we want them to use those since they are actually the experts when it coming to managing their disease. We're, again, the holistic approaches. We want to make sure that we're just providing them with all the tools and resources that they need to be able to work through whatever type of disease state and or even stress management state that they are currently going through. Another one of our big components is we actually review the wellness survey off of the WIP program. The coaches, actually, we divide up the district. It makes it easier. We divide and conquer. That way we have a touch point at every single location. And so then the employee gets used to that actual coach, and then they're will actually open up even more. So this is just the breakdown of all of the locations. They average about 80 hours a week divided amongst all 4 coaches. And that's how many hours that we can spread throughout the district. This is our health coaching report. This is the report that I was referring to that John and Rosie get. These are our health coaching interactions, our total interactions year to date. Now remember, we just wrapped up April, so Rosie will probably be getting that in the next week or two. But one number that I really want you to look at here is where it says the new one-on-one coaching. These are the very first time ever health coaching since they've been with the district. If it's a new employee or somebody that has never reached out to us before, we tag that. And that's 386 employees are brand new to our program. Follow-ups, of course, are really high. Once we get somebody into our program, we can normally get a nice repeat business from them. That's about 2,107. On the spots these are these spontaneous health coachings. We'll be in a location or we'll be at an event, and there will be an opportunity to turn in that meet and greet into an actual health coaching consultation. We send out a lot of information by email. That's one of our number one modes of communication. But it's not just sending out information. These are follow-up in an email. So this is the health coaching email correspondence back and forth with those employees. So it's not just like, hey, sign up for this challenge. It's like, okay, I signed up for the challenge and we noticed that your fruits and vegetables are too low based off the recommended servings or based off of the actual challenge. So then that dialogue will start there. And then phone calls, these are our phone calls we have. Those are a little bit of a lower number, but it's well to be expected. A lot of people just don't have access to be able to pick up their phone during a work day and talk to a health coach. So that gives you kind of an idea of the health coaching sessions. These are target areas of exactly what we talk about. If you go down to the second category, which is the stress management, we have stress management, and then we also have the personal self-care. Self-care would fall underneath like sleep, making sure that they're going to their doctor, making sure that they're getting those referrals. We also look at depression and anxiety 2 different ways. Anxiety is really worrying about what's coming up. It's in the future. Depression actually is something that they're worried about in the past. So we really look at their person. Yes? Did somebody have a question?
That was just me coughing. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. So we look at, when we're looking at stress management, we kind of put some people into a little bit of categories, exactly how can we really address that stress management? Do we refer them out to Jorgensen's Brooks? Do we actually refer them to their PCP? Do we refer them to COPE? So we really kind of deep dive into asking those open-ended questions to find out exactly what is currently happening within their situation. If it's a work-life balance, we can handle that. That's more of a holistic approach. If it's a work issue, then we actually then drive them towards their supervisors or actually to HR. Or again, we actually drive them to Jorgensen Brooks as well. These are some of the disease states that we really look at. We do a lot on blood pressure and we do a lot on cholesterol. One of the reasons why is that when they're doing the WIP program, a lot of the employees will share their biometric outcome with the health coaches. It's not required. They do not have to share that information with the health coach. These are the ones that are actually very, very upfront, and they want to know, what should I do about these numbers? And so this kind of breaks it down of how many people we've actually really coached and counseled on cholesterol, blood pressure, diabetes. And I'm sure that that number is a lot higher, but again, we don't have access to the cost of your care and exactly what's really happening when you're looking at an expense coming through the plan. So anything that you can share with us, if it's through John or Rosie, please let us know. Like I've said in the past, we can be very, very nimble, and we can change our programs very quickly if needed to be, based on your recommendations, based off of the actual financials. A couple of the other ones, these are the self-care things, such as, let's say, for instance, they currently are getting ready to have a surgery. They need some tips and help on actually stretching, or exactly what should their aftercare look like. We deal a lot with headaches and, like I said, depression, and then, of course, sleep. So when we built our program for our Life Talks and also our PDs, we really take these numbers from last year and say, okay, what are the employees already telling us? What's that snapshot? And then we develop the program based on those outcomes from health coaching. Now, Hallenstein, my goal was to try to get this thing up and running, and we're still having a little bit of roadblocks with Hallenstein. We are actually on site live in the wellness wing. Kevin's on site and Iris is on site. We do have the fitness center there. We have a few items in the fitness center, but the only problem is the security and be able to get access in the building if you're not actually an employee of Hallenstein. So if you're not housed there, you can't get in during off hours. So we try to do fitness classes there, but unfortunately we just didn't have the ability to lock it up or even to get in for employees coming elsewhere. But we do a lot of life talks out of there, and we also do a lot of presentations out of there. So when professional development is having some type of an event or another subcommittee within the organization is having an event, then we are actually asked to come and do a stretch or do a lecture or provide, say, for instance, any type of information that is relevant to that actual presentation that they're doing. These are our health promotions and also our prevention. So I probably showed you last year, but let me show you again this year. Our biggest thing is our calendar. We have this electronically, and then we also hand out hard copies. We handed out 2,500 of these. This tells you step by step of exactly every single month what the program is, from recipes, the challenges, how to get a hold of your coach, what's coming up next. So if you haven't had a chance to look at the calendars, please, you can go on to the wellness website. It's right there. Click on it and you can find out exactly every single day, every single month, what we're currently doing out in the TUSD community. So again, like I said, we handed out 2,500 of those. And then again, we put it on the wellness website. On the wellness website, we're also linking into the benefits as well. So then that way we're kind of double dipping for those employees. So if they go to the benefits site, it's going to link them back to the wellness site. If they go to the wellness site, it's going to help link them back to the benefits site. We have challenges. We have 4 challenges a year, and those challenges actually, again, they drive health coaching. It is like that incentive to just get them going. And so on the very bottom in the blue, it'll tell you what the outcomes were. So with our Boot Up Challenge, we had 384 employees participate, Taste the Rainbow, a nutrition challenge, that was 487. Pay It Forward, those are the challenges that we get a lot of great feedback about, because it's about, you know, kind of stepping out of your own mindset and actually helping somebody else. That was 273. And then of course we had the favorite one, which is the Fit Go Bingo with 651 employees. Well, of course, we brought on mammograms again this year. We actually used BreastLink this year. We had some complications with getting mobile on-site mammography. Unfortunately, they kind of canceled about 4 months out, and so we had to be extremely nimble and get a new company. So we had
It's the TUSD.
Do what? Oh, somebody said something. So then we actually had BreastLink that was also known as RedNet, and they actually were able to screen 100 women. And with that, we had 15 abnormal findings that were requesting a follow-up. Now, they don't turn around and work with us at the Wellness Council or with the health coach. They work actually with the screeners, and then they send it off to whomever that they want them to actually read those scans. And then they follow up with their primary care doctor, their OBGYN, or maybe even an oncologist. So we did have 15 abnormal findings, but we found no cancer this year, which was a blessing. And then, of course, we offer at the same time our flu shot clinic as well. This year is a little bit later. Everybody is kind of like back and forth. Well, do we have it in September? Do we have it early October? Do we have it in November? So we're still kind of playing catch up of exactly when is the best time to actually have flu shots. And of course, we offered the COVID boosters as well during that time. These are our live talks. This is exactly the information that we get out, that in absence of a health coach, they can go onto the wellness website, or they can even ask for a live talk to be presented at their location during a professional development or a training day. And you'll see here that these are all the live talks that are currently up on the website. What we do is at the end of a PD, a professional development learning day, we'll take that, we'll re-record it because we don't want to put any of the employees' information that has come through the chat. So what we do is after the event, we re-record and then we put that online. So the employees that were not able to make it to the PD because of other obligations with meeting some of their requirements, but yet they still want to come, this kind of gives you an idea of how many people went back and maybe listened to it or first timers as well. The biggest one right now, it looks like on this one here, was the financial. And thank you, Rosie and her team. They provided us with a lot of tools and resources that we were able to connect and put it into our presentation. So then that way the employees actually had, again, relevant information that they can turn around and start to use immediately. And then, of course, our professional development. I am so glad that we have this. You know, there's not very many organizations that can be in front of this many employees in one day. There's not anyone that I work with, and I have 12 accounts with the Wellness Council, that we have a touch point with these amount of employees. And here's the thing. It's because a lot of these employees that go to professional development, they actually have to have a set class that they have to take. So they have to kind of work around the blocks to find out what they can actually do. And for us to be able to get this many people to participate is amazing, absolutely amazing. So when you look at in August, we actually had a total of 733 employees attend this presentation. And these are interactive. There's a lot of engagement that is going on. We do live stretches with them. So if you haven't ever got to participate in one of these, for those that are actually working within the district, I highly recommend that you pop in and do an audit. In October, we actually had 777 employees that we were able to connect with. In January, it grew quite a bit. It grew to 1,140. And then our top one was in March with a total of 1,421 employees attended our PD that day. So super numbers. And again, I send off our survey results to Rosie and to John, so that way you guys have that information of exactly the good, the bad, and the ugly of what employees said. Most of them said that they want to be home doing this instead of being actually in their classroom or at work taking their PD. But that was beyond my scope. So this year, our fitness classes, we had fitness classes again this year. We kept the Zoom classes in the morning for those employees that could actually take part in it. It really is up and down with our participation. And so we try to switch these out every quarter. So every quarter, if we don't have any participation, we got low participation, we automatically cancel it and then put it at a different location. So when you see something that goes 0 down, and then all of a sudden they go to a different location and you see it up, that's just because we're trying to change it around so that way we touch as many employees possible. Next year, it looks like that we're only going to be doing the Zoom classes next year. And the reason for that is the security. Security has taken up, which I totally understand. And I think that it's super important that we have that type of security. But because all of our classes are taught by fitness instructors from the community, they don't have access into the building. And so then we ask for someone to be the contact person at that facility. And as we all know, things happen, things change. And then unfortunately, the instructor can't get into the building. So until we can find something that works at Hallenstein or maybe even just at 1010 where we actually have access, and with you guys moving in July, we thought that for next year's calendar, we're just going to be offering them back again in the Zoom format. This again just kind of gives you another recap of exactly where we're currently at so far this year in January and February. Our WIP program has finally come to an end. This number did grow just a little bit. This PowerPoint was put together before the last day of the appeals process. So we were able to actually get 20 more people qualified for the WIP. So we have a total of 652, where this says it's 632. So again, 652 qualify for the Wellness Incentive Program, so they will be able to get a payout of $300 over the course of the year for the 24-25 school year. WIP is, it's not, let me go to the next page. It's not really growing. Let's see, does she have it on here? Oh, no, she didn't. It's not really growing as much as I would like to, but I think it's because we've been at the same incentive dollar since 2015. So unless they're really hungry for it, or they find that they're going to have an increase someplace else, it's not really growing. And we spend a lot of time and money advertising the Wellness Incentive Program, being out into the TUSD community of doing the survey results. We definitely, I think, have banged the drum really, really loud. So I don't know if this is something that you guys might want to put on your books for next year to look at, to re-examine the Wellness Incentive Program, maybe probably putting a little bit more dollar into the game. But that's something that you guys will need to discuss. But right now, like I said, you had 652 employees completed, so they're going to be receiving a $300 incentive. Now, one great thing about this program, and I'll go back here, is that you can look at it this way. You had 656 employees actually go to their healthcare provider and get an annual well visit done. You had 650 employees that actually did their lab work, which is so important because what they don't know, they don't know. And if they can get in with the healthcare provider and establish constant care or consistent care, it's a win-win because we could possibly stop something from ever happening. And these are just some of the options down below. They can pick 2 out of the 8 to be completed. We're going to streamline this down to 6 next year. We're taking 2 out. And one of them is turning in a receipt for a piece of gym equipment, or the other one is what we're going to take out, that they do not have to do a fundraising event for a fitness activity. So those 2 we're going to take out. So that's that. And then we definitely advertise and utilize all of the tools and resources that you guys provide to us through the benefits department. And again, a shout out to Rosie for always feeding us the information that we need. So our number one area that we actually promote quite a bit and use is the Jorgensen Brooks group. So I would love to see numbers of exactly how many employees are taking part in Jorgensen Brooks. I know that you probably, because of HIPAA violations, you don't get the actual employee name, but I like to see that if I'm looking at my health coaching reports and I've actually reported 25 people I turned over this month to Jorgensen Brooks, how many the next month did Jorgensen Brooks actually have visit their site? And then, of course, Real Appeal. We still promote Real Appeal quite a bit. We know that there's not a one-size-fits-all for every employee. Some people work very, very well on a virtual platform versus doing something like, say, for instance, Weight Watchers in person, but they might do the Weight Watchers online. So same thing with Real Appeal. I love it because they really look at the biometric outcome of making sure that if they have a BMI over 30, over 28, 29, depending on exactly what other type of disease states that they might be in, to allow the employee to participate in that. And tomorrow we actually have a meeting with Real Appeal to find out what the outcomes are so far for the year, and also their upcoming promotions. So that now leads me to the questions. Wow, you guys are talkative tonight. Woo, it's late. You're about with dinner.
Great job, Andrea. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Debbie is here today, Debbie Logan. She is our program manager. And then we also have Sarah, who is our chief financial officer. So if you have any questions at all for them as well, they'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you so much, Andrea.
You're so welcome.
Thank you, Debbie.
All right, well, sounds great. All right, should we go ahead and pop off?
Yeah, you're welcome to drop off.
Okay, you know what? One thing, Mark, that we probably should talk about, or John, we should talk about this, is that, you know, instead of waiting till the end of the year to tell you what we've done, is maybe even have some more touch points throughout the year. If you're seeing some medical drivers that we can be, like I said, very nimble and start to change some of the programs, please let me know. We would be more than happy to participate in any form or fashion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, All right, you're welcome. You guys have a great rest of your evening.
Okay.
Okay, see you later. Bye-bye, guys.
So the next item is the trust reserve policy and requirements. And John, I'm going to let you kick this off, see what you've got, and then I have a few thoughts and questions and comments.
Yeah, I think we, when we put this on the agenda because of the discussion we had earlier, when we were looking at a subsidy for this year's benefits. So again, some of you are more familiar than others with regard to what it requires, but I think it was important that we all have the same understanding. So I'm going to try to pull up, if you don't mind. Are you seeing the reserves
I am.
policy? Okay, so obviously this comes from our 2020 EBT documents, and I'm not sure if it's been looked at or revised since then. But under Article 7 under reserves, I mean, this kind of echoes some of the discussion we had, but the reserve policy, just to reiterate, requires that we maintain at a minimum a cash reserve sufficient to pay 6 months of projected claims, premiums, and expenses under the trust. And then following 7.02, we have a couple of items that instruct us as to what action is needed should we go lower than the minimum or surpass, an 8 month projection. So 7.03 indicates that if at any future point of measurement, the cash reserve is lower than the required 6 months, then that would give us the requirement to go develop a plan to bring that amount above the minimum requirement within 2 fiscal years or at whatever alternate timeline we set for ourselves to hit that 6 month reserve target. And then the only other piece of that was 7.04, which was referred to during the discussion, that if at any future point of measurement, cash reserve is more than 8 months of claims, then the trustees are required to develop and approve of a plan to reduce the reserve back to that 6 month minimum reserve target. So I just want to bring this up. I know we had wanted to just kind of go, remind and refresh ourselves on what the reserve policy is, and perhaps if there is any desire to revisit, refine, modify that reserve requirement. I mean, that would be something up to the trust to discuss. So I just wanted to, I'm, kind of the newer member on the trust to, kind of remind us this is what we were talking about. To me, if we look at that 6 months of projected claims, premiums, and expenses, looking at, let's say our current month's expense data that we just got, not current month, but our February numbers, if that's the average of about 3.1 $1 million per month of expenses, then that 6 month requirement would put us, I would estimate, in that $18 million range as a minimum. And then if we were to look at an 8 month projection, closer to, I would guess, maybe 24. But I think we discussed what was required of us, and what we would do if we what we were able to do if we surpassed that 6 months. But this is the guidance that we have in our current reserve policy. So just for the good of the order, just to bring that refresher back to the trust.
John, while I was listening to Christine, of course, we're having a good year so far. And so then that starts to say, okay, how do we start to bring things back in line? A couple questions I've got, and I don't know if Valley, Tom, and Jameson could help, but I wonder if we need something a little more sophisticated, because 6 months, if you had a couple of really bad claims, a couple preemie babies, we had preemie twins, stuff like that, the 6 months could really start to look a little crazy. Or we had a good run of 6 months, and I wonder if we get whipsawed a little bit by having it 6 months. And I'm wondering if it should be something more the I don't know, maybe 18 months or something that where we could get more, a little better leveling of that. And then the other thing, if you remember when we talked about the subsidy and stuff, we're able to keep really, really high stop loss insurance, which saves us a bunch of premium. And if we get too low, then we've got to get serious about increasing stop loss, which was going to be a pretty big hit to the expenses. And I don't know if you can write something into the reserve policy that talks about stop loss, so we don't lose that, because, you know, it may be not crazy, but it seems like if we got too low and then all of a sudden had to dump a bunch of money into stop loss, or is it counterproductive? So I'm just sitting here thinking, you know, things are looking good, so how do we bring it more in line? But how do we then, like 6 months from now, we have a couple of bad months and then all of a sudden we're low and we're scrambling to recover? And so I'm just wondering if there's a more sophisticated way to kind of levelize our decision making. And other trustees, other members, please jump in.
I would agree with you, Mark, and I think over the years, there's been talk a couple times of talking about a year, making that on a year cycle so that it matches the financial planning for the district. And it just has never been done.
I'm not proposing like a year's worth of claims.
Right.
I'm talking, you know, kind of a weighted average to get the 6 months of claims, but it's a weighted average over a longer period of time, just so you're clear that I'm not asking to increase the number of months, but how we smooth it. Dr. Shaw's got his hand up.
I think what you're trying to ask is like how we calculate the 6 months of reserves. How is that calculated? How do we estimate the 6 months of expenses? Is it based on just the prior 6 months? Is it based on an 18-month average, like you had mentioned, and then get a monthly by the 18-month average, and then multiply that by 6 or 8? Depends on which one we're looking at. Is that what you're asking? Like,
I'm throwing out, should we consider something like that? Because, you know, to your point, I'm not sure how we do it. If we just take the last 6 months and then multiply by that average, I'm not sure. And I'm wondering if we ought to have a little more specificity in here. Because, you know, if we're having good years, we ought to try to lower expenses for everybody. Because our job here is not to sit on a bunch of cash.
I understand what you're saying, Mark, but we also don't want to jump the gun too much. Like you're saying, if we had a good 6 months and it, you know, expenses are low and we end up, you know, bringing our balance down, and then we're hit with 3 months of really high claims, we're going to then have to do a plan on how to bring our balance back up. So I think you're onto something of, we need to have a better understanding of the flow throughout the year. I mean, do we have a 6 months that's higher and then a 6 months that's lower? But just looking at the preceding 6 months is probably not the best estimator of the potential claims that we could see.
If I could comment, Mark?
You bet.
Okay, I don't know if there's I'm sure there is, excuse me, a more sophisticated or intricate way of measuring. I don't think everything happens on a year. I mean, if I were in your shoes, I'd want to be looking at always measuring, how am I starting the year or how am I ending? Because you look at how you might be ending, and I think you just need to adjust your contribution strategies each year during, you know, February or whatever, when you approve premiums, to make sure that you are maintaining your reserve level. I don't think you can realistically look at it throughout the year, and anytime it falls below, do anything to adjust that. I think it's each anniversary of the year is the time you want to look at it and say, hey, are we over over reserved, and do we want to make some type of adjustment and lessen the contributions because of it? And the other, if you're under reserved, maybe you need to adjust then. I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, I'm not proposing that we do it, you know, month by month or quarter by quarter. To me, it's when we do the rate setting annually. But, you know, we had a good 6 months and it said we ought to, you know, drop it, and then we roll into 6 bad months and it says we ought to raise it. Well, maybe the average of those two is maybe we were right, you know, we didn't need to drop and then raise up. I just feel more comfortable if we had something a little more sophisticated so the district knew what was guiding us.
And
Let me talk at the office and talk with James and see what he's seen out there. I typically see everything I've ever seen. It's always been how many months of claims. And I've seen all kinds of numbers.
Don, I think you were going to jump in, and then I didn't want to jump in.
Yeah, I guess that the way I'm understanding it, Mark, is that you're just taking a look at whatever that time frame is, if it's 18 months, using that claims and expense data to project, going forward. I'm not sure what's being used now, but maybe Tom, we could kind of come up with a couple of different scenarios for projecting those expenses, and which is what the reserves, or what the reserve policy is based on, what that projection encompasses. So it's not, I don't know that it's necessarily the past 6 months, but are we talking about a longer period of history to make sure we're accounting for ups and downs? And the other piece is that I know we also don't factor in the pharmaceutical benefits or the rebates as well as part of that, but that's been a nice number to see there, but I'm not sure how much we come to depend on that as we also analyze our standing throughout the year.
Yeah, I mean, your best measure of the expense estimates are what Jameson's underwriting is. I mean, that's the one time we're measuring.
And then, Tom, I think we are a little bit unusual, maybe not, maybe I'm kidding myself, but we've been able to really go very, very high on stop loss. And do we need to put some language in the reserve policy about stop loss, that if we get to this point, then stop loss should go from 1 million to 900,000 or 800,000, and have some guidance in the reserve policy so when we hit certain targets, again, and I'm talking annually, that we then say, okay, if we're going to run at this reserve level, then we should adjust stop loss to this amount. And if we could do the work when we're not in the middle of a mess or a crisis, we'd probably get a little better result. And then when we get there, we're not scrambling. We have guidance that we've created on what should happen.
Yeah, and I think that would be one of the natural questions you'd ask. I don't know if you need to incorporate it into your policy as to what your adjustment or what your solution might be. I think annually that's part of what you do. Tucson is unusual with the $1 million stop loss. If we were to look at Jameson's recommendations, you would be probably half that, but you have been running well. So it was a good decision to do that, but I think, again, I don't know that you need to put it in the policy, but we'll kick it around, because you're going to do what's necessary. And if it's necessary to adjust the stop loss down or up or whatever it would call for, you do that annually. It's not something you would do during the year, but a discussion that we should have when we're doing the underwriting and planning for the next year. That's when I think all these discussions should happen, if that makes sense. But I'll ask about a more sophisticated policy and see if there is something we should put to add to it. I've just never thought about it in those terms.
Tom, just personally, as I sat there listening to Christina, I'm like, oh man, should we have, not had the rates go as high as we did this coming year? This looks really good. But in 2 months, I could be sitting here going, man, it's a good thing we did what we did because we're gonna land okay, but not great. And as I was thinking that, I was thinking, man, I've got to get, so I'm not thinking meeting by meeting, financial report by financial report.
I look at the year. I always, I look at the loss ratio and where we are in the year and how we were last year. And yeah, I try not to overthink these things, but that's me.
Anybody else want to jump in on this discussion? So, Tom, would you be okay if we put this down on the next meeting and you and Jameson could?
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll come back, and if we have some better ideas for you, we'll share them for sure. And Jameson is much better to speak on this, I think.
What is involved in changing that trust document? Do we know?
Renee, I was thinking at the end of the day, it goes to the governing board. I'm not 100% sure, but I thought we could recommend changes and then it was presented, but that's a good question we ought to research.
I know that you approved, you did an evaluation of your reserve policy back in September of 20. And based on that, you came up with your 6 months. Work CBiz did for you. And I know at that point, I mean, I remember seeing it in your minutes and agenda that you approved the 6 months there. I don't know the mechanics after that, if it goes to your board or not.
Yeah, the final document, the one I just shared and pulled off our website was endorsed as well by the governing board. So I think probably the trustees take a shot at it, make a recommendation to the governing board, then the governing board. I'm just assuming, I'll go verify that, but the governing board likely will take the final action to approve.
I knew they had final approval action. I just wasn't
Yeah.
sure, what the process was to get those edits moving forward. And thank you, Tom. That's where I was headed with the year. I mean, the one concern we never want to get to because they budget once a year. So if we, miss that mark, that 6 month mark, and we have to come up with that money, well, the district can't do anything until the next budget year. So we have to make sure somewhere that it knows we're only going to look at this once a year and then it's going to align with the district's budget year, because outside of that, we can't fix or change anything.
Everything's done on that year. I mean, the only time you really need to do something during the year is if you actually didn't have any money. But we're nowhere near discussing that. Because you don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months. I mean,
right.
You just don't.
And I'll be totally pragmatic, totally candid. I would rather us work on fixing this because, the bigger that pot of money grows, the more it attracts attention and the more people want to jump in and help us. And I appreciate their wanting to help, but, we're in the trenches month by month in this. So I would like to maybe, take a crack at seeing what we could do and present it rather than waiting for somebody to come to us and say, hey, what the heck are you guys doing?
I mean, I think you've taken a reasonable approach to what you've done so far. I mean, my opinion. You studied it, you said it at 6 months, not unreasonable given your stop loss level at all. But again, if there's something more sophisticated that we can do or provide more guidance, I think that's really what you're looking for is.
Well, but see, my point is, Tom, is if we stuck rigidly to the 6 months and John said it's 3.1, let's just say it's 20, just to make the math really easy, and we're sitting at 27, that's saying we're $7 million over reserved, and I don't feel like we're $7 million over reserved, but I do feel like we're over reserved. So that's what's concerning me with just a simple 6 month. If we did a weighted average over the last 18 months, would it be 3.4 instead of 3.1, and maybe bring things a little closer into line? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you want to define when's the best time to measure. That's what you're saying is what's a logical time to measure, because you shouldn't be reacting at some given point in time. Really,
Right.
you need to be reacting on anniversary dates of the plan. I mean, that's where you need to make all your adjustments.
Yeah, well,
Right.
we're making
Yeah.
recommendations in February, like I think Renee was saying, we're making recommendations in February. And we're just assuming we're comfortable knowing where we'll land at the end of the fiscal year, but that's God willing, nothing out of the ordinary happens. So yeah, maybe it is just a matter of making sure we're comfortable with where that measurement is taken, and then making sure we have enough of a cushion to, withstand any unexpected, events.
And
Yeah.
And should that 6 months be, okay, we do a weighted average of something for the last 6, but then we expect medical inflation to be 8%. So should we be building 8% into that, because that money would be spent going forward? And so right off the bat, because of medical inflation, we would be behind the 8 ball. So again, is that some of the sophistication that it's 6 months of reserves, but then that 6 months is adjusted by the actuarial projections going forward to make sure we really have as much money as we think we need? Okay, so Tom, if you and Jameson would give us your wisdom, it would be much appreciated. And anybody else, if you have thoughts after this meeting and want to reach out to Tom or John or whatever, make suggestions or weigh in on this, or if you want to even talk to me, I can pass it on. Okay, anything else on the reserve policy? Okay, so Tom, you're up again on the stop loss quote proposal.
You guys see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, Voya is your stop loss carrier. You currently have $1 million. They provided a renewal for your $1 million with about a 3% increase, which in the stop loss world is low. Stop loss is usually double-digit increases. But again, your stop loss level is so high and your experience has been so favorable, I can understand the 3%. They did give a renewal option, you can see on the right, of a 1.1 with a reduction of about 10.8%. And I'm going to flip down. They also gave a 1.2 with a reduction of almost 25%. Our recommendation is just to stick with what you have.
Yeah, I just want to look. So if we went from $1 million to 1.1, we saved $50,000.
Yeah, roughly 50, 380 to 329.
Yeah,
and
so
if you go to the 1.2, it's down to 278,000. That should be about 100,000, I think. Yeah, a little over 100,000. Not our recommendation to do that. And this increase is less than what we budgeted for in the when we did the contribution rates with the fixed expense for next year.
I need people to weigh in, because stop loss really is one of those things that just is a burr under my saddle. So I'm fine staying at $1 million, but it's sure tempting to grab that extra money. But I may be getting too greedy.
It's not enough. It's not worth it, in my opinion. I mean, if we were to look at Jameson's, and I'm going to stop sharing this. I want to share another screen. Hang on, let me find it. Where is it? Oh, I can't find it now. I'm looking for Jameson's underwriting, and I had it up, I thought. There it is. Boom. Okay. Can you see this? Oh,
your
that's my
screen.
daughter. That's my granddaughter.
Best light of the evening.
Oh dear. Where is? Oh, there it is. Good.
You just wanted to show her off, Tom. We
That's-
get it.
That's it. I think you can see my screen now.
Mhm.
This is your initial underwriting that we did this year. Typically, our recommendation for stop loss level is where the expected number gets to 2. And that's this column here. It's the blue and white striped column. And you can see that happens around $400,000. That's typically where we'd recommend your stop loss level. And really what you're doing, and if you had that level, you'd be paying a ton more. So you've saved a lot. And it has not hurt you. To quote Jameson, you've won on that one. I'm not sure I'd want to stretch it out any further were I in your shoes for $100,000. Because you can see you just haven't had the claims. You've been fortunate. Just my opinion.
So trustees, jump in. Let's
And you'll understand what you're trading off. You'll pay more, you'll pay less in a fixed expense that will happen each month because it's in your fixed expense. And you'll pay less there, but with the risk of paying more, and hopefully you've been lucky, you've paid less in your claims. I mean, it's just trading insurance for claims. That's all it is.
yeah. Tom, I'm fine where we're at, but again, that's why I think we need to revisit the reserve policy because we're 2.5 times above the recommended level, and we're pretty comfortable that we could handle that. And if we got a lot tighter on the reserves, then we got to rethink, could we handle something? And like you said, it's a lot more. I don't know how much you'd project, but if we were at 400,000 instead of $1 million, what would you think the stop loss would go
Oh, I haven't thought about that. At least I don't want to stick a number out there.
But
Sorry.
it's going to be probably more than double, right?
Oh, I was going to say it's at least 3 to 4 times.
Yeah. So instead of 380,000, we're looking at 1.2 million. I mean, I know we're just guessing, but it's a lot. It's not a little bit, it's a lot.
Oh, right. You have won. You have won that. But you're right. If you all of a sudden your reserves are less, or you're going to bring those reserves less down, then you have to take less risk. You have to spend more on stop loss and take less risk by having a lower stop loss level. But you've been doing well so far. You guys have been at $1 million for a while.
A lot of years.
Yeah.
Did we have any stop loss payments this past year? I don't think we did we? Not in the last couple of years.
Renee, and I'm just going by memory, and my memory's not real great, but I think if you look at the amount of money we've received from stop loss, it's less than $50,000. And you look at all the premiums we've paid over the years and what we've got back. At one point, I asked if we could account the savings and stop loss versus kind of what we paid so we could show hard that we're making the right decision. I think the accounting just got too messy and we couldn't really figure that out.
When is this decision due? When is this policy? When do you need an answer on this policy, a renew or not? And I asked that question just wondering if it's worth the work to say, okay, over the last 3 years, if our stop loss had been at 700,000, how much would it have paid versus how much would it have cost us? Is it worth doing that level of review?
Well, I don't think we'll have the data because we won't know what the cost was. I mean, we can make good guesses.
Yeah, it would be
But-
a guess. I get that.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be all guesswork.
Renee, what I'd like to see is that kind of analysis tied into our discussion on reserve policy.
Yeah.
I think that would be, you know, I think it'd give us some sense, you know, okay, I think we're winning too, Tom, but are we winning big time or are we just winning a little time and just winning a little, or are we taking a lot of risk? So,
And this offer from the carrier, I just wanted to mention, needs to be approved by tomorrow. Or they reevaluate based on latest claims.
okay, so I'm gonna throw it out. Is anybody willing to make a recommendation? We accept the renewal of the million and a second, or do we want to have more discussion about either going higher or lower?
I would say more discussion if we have information on, like, a better idea on the reserves, because you're right, I think that could play into the decision on this as well.
And Lauren, what I'm proposing though, that would be for next year going forward. This would lock this in for right now. And then as we look at the whole thing, it would be a going forward decision is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I would be comfortable voting on Valley School's recommended amount tonight. I'm fine with that.
Okay,
Thank
so I'm looking for a second.
So I would make a motion that we go ahead and accept the recommended amount of 1 million for the upcoming stop loss year, coverage year.
Yeah, I second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, to accept Valley's recommendation of the $1 million level at, I think it was 2.93% increase, which I think sounds really good. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I
Okay, that passes. Thank you, Tom. The next one is Hinge Health, and I show that that's you, John.
Yes, so we had the presentation from Hinge Health about the virtual physical therapy services that they provide and could provide under the CVS contract. So tonight is just a motion that I'd like to make to recommend implementation of the Hinge Health services under the CVS contract for the upcoming benefit plan year to begin on September 1st, 2024. So in order for us to implement by September, we want to be able to execute that agreement, I believe, in June 1st, give it a 90-day lead in to the implementation. So they presented to us and demoed their services, and I know that they also serve a lot of school districts that are under Valley as well.
And John, I can't remember the cost. It seemed like it was not a big hit.
It depends. I guess it depends on the level. I don't, Kendall, are you there to add to it? I know there was dependent on the type of care. So from the presentation, it seemed that any preventative services were free, but then there would be a what do you call it, a charge for recent injuries or chronic pain diagnoses that would then escalate up to a cap of I believe it's about $1,000, no more than $1,000 a year. Just trying to see if Tom or Kendall would verify that, but that wasn't in their presentation.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak on that for you guys. There are 3 different pathways that you guys can take with Hinge. There is, as John mentioned, a preventative pathway that comes at no cost and can help folks get moving and increase their mobility at no cost to the plan. And then from there, you have an acute pathway, which is more of a, I broke something and I need to see a physical therapist. And then you have a chronic pain pathway. So what we did is we sent over your actual data to Hinge Health to do an analysis to see how many people had one of those claims that would actually be charged for. And given that it looked like you guys would have an expected participation of about 221 members, and that projected fee would be about $187,000 for the year. but the savings on that would be projected to be over 548,000. We personally at Valley Schools have already seen about 1.2 million in savings in 6 months. And because it's your guys' leading cost driver in claims, I'd highly recommend it.
So it sounds to me like it shouldn't affect our rates. It might, we pay a little more for this, but we should save on claims, and net we should come out ahead.
I would actually almost, if you think about it, I would think of it more as almost shifting dollars, because people will either can see an in-person PT, which is actually probably going to be a bit more expensive, and instead we'd be shifting dollars and shifting that spend into Hinge Health, which is actually going to be less expensive than seeing an in-person PT and more convenient, and we're seeing more adherence, so people actually following through with the plan. So overall, we have just seen a significant savings, and rather than an increase, I would look at it more of shifting of the dollars from in-person to now virtual.
I just wanted to make sure that we had unexpected rate consequences, since everything's set, but it sounds like we would expect to actually do better.
Yeah, and they actually do have performance guarantees with a ROI outcome, that if they don't perform and provide that ROI where they're at least saving 1 to 5, that you guys wouldn't be paying. So there really is no cost at the end of the day. It's a great program. And again, highly recommend it.
And John, your proposal for this is for the full package, not just the preventive, but the chronic, and I'm sorry, I can't remember what the other one is.
There's a prevention pathway, an injury pathway, and then there's a chronic pain pathway. And those all would be inclusive of the program itself.
Okay.
I don't think you can pick one or the other.
Okay,
That would be
okay.
Hinge, yeah.
So we have a motion from John to adopt Hinge Health. Do we have a second?
Can I ask a couple questions?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. I rushed it a little bit.
I know that they spoke about this last time. Can you remind me how we're going to sell this option to our employees, or maybe sell isn't the word. How are we going to get recognition of this option out to our employees? I missed that piece. Because I get the cost savings. It's how are we going to capitalize on that? Because they still have the choice of going in person or selecting Hinge Health, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And I will say, just so everyone knows, there's definitely going to be times where someone goes to see Hinge Health and they're going to say, hey, you should go see an in-person physical therapist. And so there will be that referral. However, that's a great question, Renee, because communication is going to be really important when it comes to promoting the benefit. And so there's going to be 2 ways in which this is going to be promoted. One is going to be I would say 3. I'd say absolutely, sending an email out to from the benefit teams to all employees to let them know that this benefit is now available and it's free for them. And then I would also say making sure that every coach with WellCoas has this in their pocket and can recommend it to everyone, because everyone can utilize this, from someone that wants to be in the prevention channel to someone that maybe recently experienced something, or someone that has back pain. The third part of that is that this is going to be integrated with CVS Health. So they're going to have some claims data based on some of the medications that are being taken that might align with potentially someone that is taking it for for musculoskeletal pain management. And there will be some targeted outreach from them as well for those people. So there's a variety of ways in which they would reach out, but and we're happy to support that. We have a communications team, and we did a rollout of Hinge Health, and we're happy to share that information and what worked well.
Thank you. And just the second thing, the cost is only based on when people use it, right? We're not gonna, there's no cost if it's not used, right?
Yes, that is a great question. This is a per participant model. So that's correct, Renee, that this is only based on per participation per year. And it is one of the things I also like about it is that they are invoicing quarterly. So, with some of the turnover we have at the schools, if it helps with managing that piece in the way that they're billing. So that's correct. It's a per participant model.
I love the idea. I think it's great. This is absolutely the kind of thing that I want to see us doing with those excess dollars that we keep talking about, is finding these kinds of rich things that we can bring in and add to our plan to make it better. So I absolutely support it. I wanted to get a couple of questions out. Thank you, Mark.
Any other questions? So is anybody willing to second John's proposal?
I will second the proposal that we move forward with the Hinge Health.
Okay, so we have a
contract.
motion and a second to adopt Hinge Health, and I think you said it's a 90-day adoption, September 1.
Yeah, we put it on the agenda so we could get it done and move forward by June 1st, and then
Okay, perfect.
yeah, so we'll be ready to go September 1st.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So the last item, and I just want to thank everybody, trustees, staff, Valley, everybody that participates in these. We've had a pretty steady go of meetings for the last, seems like 8 or 9 months. And so we're showing the next meeting September 9th, which part of me is, that's great because it's out there a ways, but that also is out there a ways. So I would propose that we go with the September 9th date, but understand that if we have business that we need to take care of, that we call a meeting. So that would be my proposal, is we'll go with the September 9th. And Monique, if you could send a notice out to everybody so they could get it on their calendars. And
Yep,
then
absolutely.
if something comes up, we'll call a meeting to deal with it, but hopefully we'll be able to have a great summer and do the things we want to do.
We've also would have done it like a week ahead, but it is a holiday, so
Right, yeah,
everyone will be out. Yeah.
Yeah, I double checked. It's the Monday after Labor Day, so we're away from the Labor Day holiday. So, okay, with that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So
I
moved.
moved. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
did you have a question, Dr. Shaw? You're just waving goodbye. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody. Have a
everyone.
good summer.
Okay.
Bye.